Hey, Trailblazers, this is Jason, your host of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. Before we jump into our latest episode, I've got some incredible news for you. Are you gearing up for your next big hike or backpacking trip? Well, we at Trailblazing Texas podcast have partnered up with Trekker Joe's, the ultimate Texas outfitter, to bring you something I feel absolutely special. Listeners, you of the Trailblazing Texas podcast can now get a one-time 15% off their gear purchases at Trekker Joe's. That's right. Whether you're a first-time customer at Trekker Joe's or a repeat customer like me, you can save big and hit the trails well prepared. So upon checkout, use code TTP15 to claim your 15% discount and in the process support an amazing local Texas business. So happy trails, and don't forget to tell your hiking buddies. Now on with the episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast, where we embark on a journey through our diverse Texas landscapes and breathtaking trails while always engaging with our amazing Texas hiking community. So settle in, tighten up those bootlaces, and get ready for the thrilling tales awaiting for you on this episode. So, Sarah, what about for you? Were there any high points that were surprisingly more easy than you expected?
It feels kind of hit and miss a lot of the
Yeah.
time. I mean, it's so related to sleep and rest and nutrition. There have been some hikes that should feel easy and they don't for whatever reason, whether it's a high point or just something out in Polidoro. And I feel the same with running too. It's like sometimes I go out and run a 5K distance and it feels like the hardest thing I've ever done. And then I run a half marathon a few weeks later and it's like, oh, this felt great. So I think there are so many factors that contribute to your perception of the hike or of the run. And that's part of the challenge and part of the journey is like figuring out how to lock all of that stuff in and make it sustainable and approachable for you.
Brad, what about you? Let's not relate it to just high points, but like any kind of hikes that you had anxiety leading up to, and then you were like, yeah, it's really not that bad.
First time I did Guadalupe Peak, I didn't know, and it was my first high point to hit. And by the time I got to the top of it, I was like, that's not bad at all. I took my two young sons with me, and we did it, and I was surprised at how easy it was compared to what I was perceived it to be.
Yeah.
It is not easy, but to me it wasn't as hard as I expected it to be for sure. But as an overall hikes, I've done a rim to rim and couldn't walk the next day, and I've done a rim to rim and could have turned around and gone and done it again.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of that is based on the conditions that you're hiking in. The heat will definitely take a toll on you in that regard. So I won't ever assume that it's going to be easy, because I know that there are factors that can make it easy or hard, just depending on myself. Like Sarah said, nutrition and rest and other things can play into that, as well as the weather. So even something that's relatively easy on one day, the next day could be incredibly difficult to do.
I think I kind of have the opposite of that. And it's probably because I got cocky. So, you bag, I think I've done 6 14ers. So you have a comfort. I've done New Mexico High Point, Walters Peak. You do the research and okay. I'm afraid of heights, but I love to rock climb and try to manage the way I feel on exposures, just because it's a challenge. But I got cocky and I did Grays and Torreys in Colorado, and I didn't do any research. I've learned that you have to get to the trailhead by 12 o'clock at night if you want to even get relatively close parking spot. Figured all that stuff out. Got up and I think we we summited Grays and we were going down to Torrey's. And so, you drop down and then hike back up. And I'm just looking at to get back down to the trailhead. There's a snow traverse from Torrey's so you can either go the same trail you came in and hike back up to Grays, which I wasn't going to do, or you could take this like kind of I don't know, it's a shortcut where it's a snow traverse. And so like I did no research. It's like, it's just a trail. It's one of the easiest 14ers to do. I mean, none of them are easy, but easier in that list of 5 or 6. No research at all. And luckily I had micro spikes. And I tell you, the pictures of this snow traverse are, like this, but it was really like this. And, you're walking, I had to really fight the anxiety. Because if you slip, okay, I'm from Texas. I don't know when I step on snow, what are all the realm of possibilities of how the snow is going to react? Like, is it going to be slippery? Is it going to be ice? Whatever. Man, I don't want to say I was in tears, but I was panicking. And yeah, and if you look at the pictures, it's like absolutely nothing that I should have been worried about. But I'm just thinking, if I slip, there's thousands of feet that I'm sliding down this snow. So yeah, it was. So I definitely thought it was going to be way more easier, and it wasn't a hard hike, but man, that snow traverse it put me in my place, and yeah, I couldn't even look at the. I just faced the mountain. I had trekking poles, and I just dug them into the snow, took a little step, dug them into the snow, took a step. So yeah, that was kind of funny now that I look back at it. And my friend that I was with, he lives in New Mexico, and he's like, "Come on, this ain't nothing," And he's like, "Come on, let's go. You're holding up the line."
Yeah, I'm with you, Jason. I'm not a big fan of snow. I'll take cold weather all day, every day,
Yeah,
but especially when there's any sort of slope or incline. Yeah, being from Louisiana, I feel the same way. It's like I don't know how to behave here. I don't know how this is going to
yep.
go.
So, Sarah, have you ever had to turn back on a hike? Like maybe I don't want to say a high point because that limits the possible answers, but high elevation due to not being ready for it or weather or any other conditions?
Yeah, plenty of times for all of the above. Most recently, last summer, we attempted Pikes Peak from the backside of the mountain, and it's not really that difficult of a hike. It takes endurance like any 14er does. But I'm very risk averse, excuse me, and especially when I have my dog with me. And there were some clouds forming that day, and there's shelter up at the top because there's that summit house. Buy a donut up there and all that. But my dog doesn't like strangers, and so I was thinking, okay, we get up there, storm forms. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I'll always choose to turn around if I have any sort of worries about weather. Um, Likewise about physical concerns. Thankfully, I haven't really had any major injuries or anything on the mountain. I did have a fall once that kind of rattled me, and I'll turn around in that scenario too. There is always the reassurance of, okay, I know coming down, I'm going to feel better because you're going to start to get more oxygen as well. So sometimes I'll push it if it's just a concern of cardio or something like that. I'll keep trying because I know that it'll just get better on the return. At least now, my knees are still in warranty. I don't know how many more years of that I have, but downhill still feels pretty good for me.
Yeah, I like this question too. Do you have a problem with turning around? Not because of weather and all that stuff, but like because of the way you're feeling or something more personal, not on the outside factors.
It can be disappointing at times, certainly, especially when you've driven, maybe 7 or 8 hours to get there. Certainly, it can be disappointing, but that has been pretty momentary. That hasn't lasted very long. Um, the saying, the mountain will always be there. So that just means you get to come back and do it again later. And sometimes, actually, I've found that, because I'm always hiking with friends in these scenarios, and I've found that that actually strengthens our our team and our friendship, when we're all able to make that decision together. And it might not be that everyone's feeling that way. Maybe I'm feeling that way, or maybe so and so's feeling that way. But the fact that we're all able to assess the situation and read it and say, okay, yeah, I think that's it for this one. That makes me more willing to go back with those people, who have sort of a similar tolerance for risk and similar, um, sympathetic understanding. I think that's really important in friendship and with teams.
Yeah, and it's funny if like I love, and I don't mean this in a, I don't know what the right word is, sadistic way, but I love books about mountaineering, about tragedies, because you can learn so much from them. And it's amazing how many tragedies could have been averted if the person's ego didn't play a factor in their decision. And I know for me, like, I had a lot of things that I wanted to get accomplished in the quads, and there a lot more, way more failures than successes. And that was always, it bothered me, not majorly, but it was always in the back of my mind. And my friend John, he's up in Washington State, and he goes, "How fun would it be if everything that you planned to do, that you were successful?" Like, that doesn't seem very fun. Like, what's the challenge to that? How are you're not learning anything? So yeah, when he said that, I was like, all right, I'll put everything in perspective. And I think now more, it's a lot easier for me to, like you said, assess, okay, what are the risks and what's kind of going on. And absolutely, it's okay to turn around, for sure. Brad, what about you?
So I've led some hikes with people that we've had to bail because of high temperatures that I probably would have continued if it was me by myself or certain other people with me. But for the safety of the participants, the decisions have been made that this is untenable. We can't do this. We're going to have to stop. And so for me, like Sarah said, it's you have to agree as a group to do these things. Uh, and sometimes people, they'll have it. And I've seen this where, people believe that there's they may not be in danger themselves. They may not feel like they're in danger, but when you're in a group setting, you have to consider that it's not just you, and that this decision has to be made as a whole. And so, as much as I would have liked to continue, it's always in the best interest of everybody that we not. And that's happened several times. The heat in the canyon, in Paladero Canyon, it can be 75, 80 degrees on the rim, and it'll be 80, 90, 100 maybe down at the bottom of the canyon. And the temperatures can change pretty quickly too. Uh, Once the sun comes up, it can get really hot really fast, and heat will kill you so quick. People don't realize how fast it can affect the body, and the damage that it can do is significant, and sometimes you can't recover from it. And so, uh, always have to keep that in mind. We try to plan hikes that allow us to not have to experience that kind of thing, starting super early in the morning or even at night. At this time of year or in the summer, I'll do a lot of hikes at night because it's beautiful. It's a different hike altogether, but it allows you to do it and be safe, and everybody be able to complete the hike, which is why we do them as the club.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but in Paladuro, I don't know if it's every year, but there's every few years, people dying because of the heat.
Yeah, Yeah, implemented some new rules also that once it hits a certain temperature, they'll close the trails.
Yeah.
And so they put gates up on these trails, and they will fine you if they catch you on them after they've been closed. So, and the reason for that is exactly what you said. It seems like every year there's one or two deaths, and when there's a rescue that needs to be made on these trails, it puts those rescuers in as much danger as anything. So, uh, they've erected some cell towers out there for communications for first responders to help with communicating for that purpose. Again, implementing the rules of closing the trails is another thing. They'll open the park earlier in the warmer months so that people can get an earlier start,
Yeah.
be in and out of there. But I can remember hiking and finishing a hike at say 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and they have trailhead thermometers at practically every one of the trailheads, and it'll be 120 degrees, 119,
Gee.
115, 20 degrees, and people are getting out of their cars and starting a hike. And they're carrying a single water bottle, and they're wearing tank tops and flip flops. And I'm like, dude, you're gonna die. you know, I've handed what little bit of water I've had left to hikers before, because I know that they're not prepared for what they have coming. 6 miles doesn't seem like a lot, but when it's 110 degrees and you don't have any cover and you don't have any water, it could kill you.
Yeah. So what? It's a great point that you brought up. A couple. And what do you feel is your responsibility when you see these types of situations?
I'll do my best to provide both tangible and logical elements to these people. I'll give up as much water as I can without jeopardizing my own safety, but then also advising them that, look, you're not even halfway to the turnaround, and it's incredibly hot, and it's only going to get hotter, and you need to reconsider what you're doing. Most people, though, they know themselves, or they think they do well enough to, and they'll make the wrong decisions, and they ignore your advice because they got something to prove themselves, or um, they're just arrogant. Their egos get in the way, and uh, you know, I don't know what to tell those people. You can't change somebody or make them do something. Sometimes those lessons have to be learned the hard way.
Yeah, I experienced. Actually, before I get into that, Sarah, what's your view on that? You get to a trailhead, it's hot, or you're leaving a trailhead and you see people that are showing up, and you clearly know they're new. They don't really understand what they're about to get into. So, do you feel any kind of responsibility to kind of intervene, or do you just like I don't know what the right terminology is, but just like, all right, have at it.
Yeah, similar response to Brad. I mean, you can't force anybody to do anything. In fact, that's probably more than likely going to convince them not to do whatever it is you're suggesting, trying to tell people what to do. So yeah, just provide whatever resources we have when we can. We do get a lot of people asking us questions on the trail, like how much further to so and so, and you can use that as an opportunity to educate them and kind of gently guide them to what a good solution would be. I've I've run back before on trails to like deliver water. Um, I'll do whatever I can, whatever's requested of me. But not being a park employee, not being in law enforcement or anything, we can't force anyone to do anything, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think only once. So I have this a similar like, especially at Guad, because I don't shut up about it. I love that place, and I'll talk. Yeah, you should try this, that. But I also feel that I have a responsibility if I see that, and to kind of, I don't want to say educate, but just let them know what they're getting into. But I was coming down from Guadalupe Peak, and there was a gentleman and his girlfriend. They had flip flops on, not like the hiking flip flop kind of where it has I guess it's the Achilles strap. It's just like a normal flip flop. They were sharing one bottle of 16 ounces of water. It was in the mid 90s at that moment and early in the morning. And she was sitting down. And like in the Guadalupe Peak, like the first 3/4 of a mile is kind of the hardest part. And they were probably about 100 yards from that turnaround where you kind of turn south and you kind of get into the forest. So they were still, having to go through some of the harder aspects of the trail. She's crying and he's like telling her, come on, you can do this. You're running the hike and this and that. And yeah, so I definitely approached him and was probably a bit of an ass, calling that guy out for what he was doing. And, irresponsibility. I don't, you probably don't realize what you're getting into and what you're facilitating, but you guys need to turn around. And I looked at his girlfriend and I'm like, if you want to go down, because I was with my sister, I said, if you want to go down, you can come down with us. We'll get you water and we'll hang out with you until he finishes. Or you can go to the visitor center and sit in the AC, but this is really dangerous. And she stayed there and we left. So I didn't hear about anybody dying on the mountains. I don't know what the uh, ultimate decision was, but yeah, I was pretty, yeah, it's just kind of disheartening to see that kind of stuff.
They call them assholes.
Yeah, yeah, and I was an asshole, and a lot of things that I said to him are not repeatable on the Trailblazing Texas podcast. So, yeah, I wanted to fight is actually what I wanted to do, and I was so mad. And there's a lot I'm leaving out of the story, but yeah, I was mad. And Brad, it was funny that you brought it up a second ago about hiking in the dark. Everybody, if you're listening and you're at Guadalupe Mountains or at any trail, if you have the opportunity to hike the trail in the dark, do it. If you hike it in the day, okay, outside of the safety, it's hot or whatever, but let's say it's winter, let's say it's spring, it's fall, you get a totally different aspect of the trail. And it's so cool to have headlamps and, kind of experience the trail at night versus because when you come back down, it's going to be probably daylight and you're going to get that experience. But to have the opportunity to experience a trail in two different kind of environments, yeah, I mean, absolutely. And yeah, it's a little creepy and scary, but definitely give it a go.
Yeah, nothing like hiking under the stars. The things you'll see, on the
Mm-hmm.
trail. There's different animals and critters and
Yep.
bugs, and it's a completely different hike in the dark than it is in the day.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm all about that. And kind of going back to the turn back, if I've ever had to turn around, like we recently turned around and so I was with Todd. We were doing 114 miles through Carlsbad, the Lincoln National Forest, and into Guadalupe Mountains, and all the way down to I guess it's Highway 82 or something. And then our car was waiting for us at some BLM land there. We got, and what was weird is leading up to the hike, this was in February in the Guads, it was 20s and 30s in Fahrenheit. So we were like, oh, perfect weather. The day after we got there, we cached water the day we got there at Tejas, and that was the last caching spot that we needed to do. The next day, it was in the high 80s, from 20s to 30s to high 80s. And so we started through Slaughter Canyon. It had to have been up close to mid 90s, and it killed us. And I think it was always on the back of our mind that, all right, this is not the right temperatures to keep going. Well, we kept going. We made it about 65 miles into the hike, and we were sitting. We had got down to McKittrick Canyon, and we got in the cars. He had to drive to White's to get gas, and then I met him at Pine Springs, and then we drove back one of the cars to McKittrick. And we were going to leave one there and then one at Pine Springs. And we made it to, luckily it was, you know how McKittrick Canyon in the heat, you have all that rock and cement. It just makes it so hot. We were sitting on the porch of Pratt's cabin, and we both just looked at each other and go, what are we doing? Like this, and I verbalized it. I'm like, we're fixing to get into Dog Canyon in the backcountry. The trailhead's still closed. Yeah, we have water cached, but as hot as it is, like, that's, you start to getting into safety and stuff. And all I had to do was verbalize it. And Todd was like, oh, I was just waiting for you to say it. Yeah, I'm done. So we turned around and just hiked back to the cars and went our separate ways. But yeah, that was, it was hard. It was, it was hard for me to admit that we were defeated by the trail. Anyway, yeah, so that was that was one of the many that was probably one of the toughest to finally just say, yeah, we're done. So Sarah, high points, high elevation, some awesome hikes. What has been your favorite so far and why?
This hike that I did down in Peru last summer was just amazing in terms of scenery. That's definitely on my list of highlights. I mean, I have a lot of hikes that I'd rank up there for lots of different reasons. But as far as scenery goes, it just blew me away. So the Andes are the highest mountain range outside of the Himalaya, and they're quite accessible. The circuit that we did was just trekking. There's no mountain climbing that we did. It's nothing that takes any sort of skill. We also did it as a supported trip. People use mules down there, so we're just carrying day packs. So it was really quite posh in terms of all of that. And Peru is the scenery and the landscape there is just unlike anything here because it's so high. So we were above 13,000 feet for 8 days. We went as high as, I think, 17,400 while we were down there. But the crazy thing is that there are still peaks 4,000, 5,000 feet above you, even when you're at that high of elevation. So you're just surrounded by these high peaks while also already being above tree line. And there's glaciers, and there are gorges, and there are incredible lakes. It's just everything all at once. Our guide in Peru, who was suspiciously named Guio, which means guide in Spanish.
It's kind of like Sherpa. Everybody has a last name Sherpa.
Right. He just saw us day after day with our jaws just hanging on the floor. And he's like, do you not have things like this in the United States? I was like, well, we do, but not at this scale and not all at the same time. I mean, it's just kind of overwhelming. And the Wabash is still not very well known. It's not like hiking, to Everest Base Camp or the Annapurna Circuit or Kilimanjaro, certainly. These are all like very popular bucket list kind of hikes. There's a steady stream of traffic. But the Wabash is relatively unknown at the moment. And so we had a lot of space on the trail. You go through little villages. You encounter shepherds, people tending their flocks of sheep and cows. So it was a really different kind of experience from Kilimanjaro and certainly from anything else in the US that I've done. Yeah, it just, I knew it was going to be beautiful, and it was magnified times 10.
I think probably the reason why no one really knows about it is because the spelling is not YY. Like, so when they're researching it, they're like, oh, we can't find this.
Right.
So Brad, what about you? What's been kind of your favorite summit, I guess is probably the right terminology to use.
So yeah, I haven't done enough of them to really have one that stands out as incredibly remarkable. Uh, I did enjoy. It's interesting when you go to Guadalupe Peak and you get to the top of it, and you've got that monument that sits at the top. And you got to take a picture there. I've done that with my sons, and to share that with family, that's probably going to be my most favorite one. I don't like picking favorites because it doesn't do everything else that I do or that's awesome justice. It's not fair to me to do that. But if I were to one that stands out, the experience with my kids, both my sons on that mountain, has got to be it. I've also done Glacier with them, and we've hiked a couple of trails there, and I really enjoyed that. Spending time with them is great. I'm getting older, and so are they, and so they don't like spending as much time with their dad. I'm not cool anymore. So they
You were
realize,
cool once? Oh man.
yeah, once,
I don't think I was ever cool with my kids.
yeah. So, but nowadays they have so many other things that they want to do that hiking is not on their list of to dos. I do have a promise from them that they'll do a rim to rim with me at some point, so I'm going to hold them to that. But uh, so if you guys are out there and you can get your kids to go on a hike with you, do it. Do it as much as you can. They get older, they go there, and they have different hobbies, and sometimes it's not what your hobbies are. So
Yeah. I think my favorite has got to be exactly what you said is experiencing Guadalupe Peak with my kids. So I've got four. And the goal was when they turned 16, I was going to buy them a tent and a backpack. And I was going to take them to the Guadalupe Mountains, hike the crap out of them, and try to get them to relate this is life. Life's hard. You can get through it if you're prepared. So they packed their clothes, they checked the weather, they packed their meals. Of course, I had extra stuff. And also, if they messed up on what clothes to pack or what food to take, that me as a parent, I'm not going to just totally bail you out, but I'll definitely support you. Um, and so my daughter, it was a little bit late when I kind of had this idea, but the other boys, when they turned 16, that's what we did. And yeah, what an experience to witness your kids sometimes go through adversity, with the weather, with they didn't pack the right thing. And see them go through that and just that bonding experience. So I would definitely think those types of situations by far are my favorite for sure. For sure. How old are your kids, by the way?
18 and 15.
Okay. All right.
One of them graduates in 2 days from high school. So
25, 22, 20, and 19. Empty nesters.
we started late.
Yeah.
I'll be 60 when my youngest graduates from high school.
Oh, nice. 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 Yeah. I mean, we've got all those bloodsuckers out, so I'm excited. So, Sarah, any high points or any summits that you still have on your bucket list?
Well, let's see. After our rim to rim that's coming up in a week, we are headed up to Vermont and New York to do the two state high points there. I'm doing this with a buddy of mine who lives in Knoxville, who I met on my Kilimanjaro trip, along with our friend Katie, who we also met on that trip, who lives just next door in Norman, Oklahoma. So we'll fly up to Burlington, Vermont, and do the two high points there. Really, at this stage, I kind of feel like I'm just along for the ride. I
Yeah.
don't have a whole lot that I am just dying to do. I'm kind of just down to do whatever it is my friends want to do, again, because it's that captive audience.
Yeah.
I just want to hang out with my friends and walk and make jokes. So I'm really down to do whatever. So that's the two big things that we have coming up next. Later this summer, I'm headed to the Sneffels Wilderness area in southwestern Colorado. There's a hut-to-hut trip there. It's a privately owned hut system um, that is in the Sneffels Wilderness. You can do some 14ers and some extra hikes as an offshoot, but just kind of the base of the trip is 5 to 9 miles hiking per day from hut to hut. So we'll do that. I'm excited about that. It's dog friendly. We managed to get a group of 8 of us together so that we can have the whole hut system to ourselves while we're out there. I'm sure other things will come up. I try to do a couple 14ers every summer. But otherwise, really it's races that I'm picking out and planning and training for at this stage. I consider myself more of a hiker, but races have been very motivating because it's an excuse to go somewhere new, push
Right.
yourself, try a new distance, different type of terrain. So I've got a race up on the Continental Divide that I'm training for that'll be early September. And then actually I am doing another state high point right after that with the same 2 friends that I met on Kilimanjaro. We're going up to Kings Peak in Utah, and we'll do that as a one-night backpacking trip.
So also, Sarah, take this question first. So you've done a lot, and you guys have the rim to rim coming up, but when you have these challenges, what is your strategy for training and preparing for some of these? Is it so? I guess, do you have something specific that you do for like maybe an upcoming trip, or is it just you're constantly just in your normal kind of day to day that prepares you for such trips?
Kind of both. I am pretty much always following some sort of training plan. I find that very motivating. I like to work up to a big goal. I'm also very good at doing what I'm told. So if the training plan says I need to do XYZ, I'll do it. I've actually experimented with having AI write me training plans the last couple of times, which has been really interesting because a lot of these challenges that we do are not standard things like running a marathon or running a half marathon or something like that. So that's been a good way to incorporate some sort of unique challenges in the training plan. I do a lot of walking. I've really shifted from running as my primary training to walking because I find that just time on feet is the most important thing. I'm not trying to do anything fast. In fact, my hiking pace is very similar to my running pace. I'm a faster hiker and slow runner. So walking is just fine in terms of training. And it helps me get in that lower heart rate zone, which I think is important to build endurance. I also play hockey, and that's been a really great cross training. I mean, it's like doing interval training for an hour.
Yeah.
So all of that balances out pretty well for me. I usually try to build up to a big goal over 2 or 3 months or so, and then start building to the next thing.
So this is an off-topic question, but does your AI have a name?
Do you mean like which one do I use?
No, just when like ChatGPT. Do you use ChatGPT?
I've used ChatGPT. I use Perplexity sometimes, and sometimes I use the built into like the Microsoft Edge browser.
So I have an account with ChatGPT, and I've asked it, like, if you were a human, what name would you be? And it really gave me this long like thought process, and it picked Aspen.
Okay.
And I was like,
That seems
okay.
appropriate.
And then I'm like create an image of yourself, like if you were a human. And so I guess because I talk a lot about Guadalupe Mountains, it was a park ranger with Guadalupe Mountain in the background as an image. And I was
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AI is way scary. It's horribly scary.
Oh, trust me, I know. I teach at a university here, and I have learned that the hard way, that it is indeed scary, and it's getting scarier.
Like, how much plagiarism or non-original thought of assignments do you get?
Well, it's really hard to prove, right? It's not like plagiarism where you can find the source. So I teach piano, so the application is pretty limited to what I do, but I do have some courses I teach that have written assignments. This year is the first year that that's really popped up. Yeah.
You got to use AI to find AI.
Yeah, that
Exactly.
has been one of my strategies. That's right.
So, Brad, what about you? You know, if you just look at things that you have coming up, things that you've done, what is your strategy for training and preparing for these types of things? Is it kind of just your normal? You're always out hiking, so is it that, or do you specifically tailor training programs or what you want to do depending on the upcoming trip?
Yeah, so I don't really have a specific plan. Like Sarah said, I try to keep on my feet as much as I can. I use every hike as an opportunity to train for something bigger. And the fact that we live so close to Paladero Canyon, which there are a few trails that can give us some elevation, we'll just do them over and over again. So, one of our horrible hikes that we trained for, we had hoped to do the entire Cactus to Clouds hike in Palm Springs, but the trail was closed, so did an alternate route, which was equally challenging. And so we just did rock garden repeats over and over. We just go up to the top, turn around, come down, go back up, come back down. So uh, it was a horrible hike.
Yeah.
It's really funny to see people's reactions when you've passed them for like the third time. They're
Yeah,
very confused. And also the dog. The dog was hilarious to watch because we'd see a lot of our friends on the trail and she'd be like, oh, there's Kate. And then, 5 minutes later, Kate again? Oh my
yeah.
gosh, this is so exciting.
What kind of dog do you have?
She's a blue heeler. She's a shelter dog from Pampa, Texas.
Blaze.
Yeah, Blaze dog. The Blaze craze.
Yeah, we lost all three of our dogs at the beginning of this year. Two of the boxers were 10 or 11, so kidney failure, the hind legs stopped working on the two boxers, and then Johnny, he was the mutt, he was 15, he unexpectedly just, we had to put him down. So, and it was all within about 3 or 4 weeks of each other. It was pretty
You're gonna make
devastating.
Brad cry. Careful.
Yeah, it was tough. It was
Yeah,
tough.
we had to put down our golden last November,
Yeah.
and she was only 7. And gosh, it, uh, new topic.
Yep. New topic. All right. Sarah, uh, what is one hike or backpacking trip that really pushed you outside of your comfort zone? And I'm going to add to this question that when you look back, you were like, I'm a badass.
A couple come to mind. Let's see. I think the first time that I did Wheeler Peak felt like you just described. It was shortly after I moved to Texas. It was also a little earlier in the summer season. It may not have actually been summer yet. It may have been late spring. So, as anyone knows who's hiked at high elevation, snow is a concern. You mentioned some of that earlier. And I was with a friend who is more experienced than me and more comfortable in those scenarios. Um, so we were kind of doing as much as I wanted to do. I was sort of leading the charge in terms of what I was comfortable with. There was also a really big windstorm in that area a few months prior, and since it was so early in the season, they hadn't done any cleaning up of the trail yet. So all of these challenges combined to create a really difficult hike on a route that's already not easy. I think Bull of the Woods is something like 10 or 11 miles with, I don't know, 3,500, 4,000 feet of gain, something like that. Um, and I had the dog with me. She was new to me and new to hiking as well. And I remember thinking like, okay, I'm going to get up here to the Williams Lake turn off and I'm going to be like, all right, this is enough for me. You can go on ahead, if you want to, but But we just took it a step at a time, and were able to do the whole loop, and really surprised myself. And I don't remember what exactly I was training for at the time, but it really gave me the confidence that I needed. Just seeing that I could, bite off a small portion at a time and work my way through it. Another trip that I took more recently was to the Gila National Forest in New Mexico, southwestern New Mexico, right near the border with Arizona. And I mentioned that I'm sort of a novice backpacker. I haven't done a whole lot of backpacking, but this was I think a 3-night backpacking trip that we took over Thanksgiving. And that whole experience was pretty new to me. I'd never done more than a couple nights, I think, backpacking, and I was sort of the leader of the trip, dealing with all the navigation and everything. There's also our friend Helen could remind us how many water crossings there were. I don't remember, something like 50 something water
Oh my
crossings one day,
gosh.
which was just insane. And I don't like water. I'm not a big fan. So that pushed me in different ways, carrying a heavy pack, going in and out of the water. It was 17 degrees the first night. Um, Thankfully, it was wintertime. There's no burn bans. We're able to make a fire every
Yeah.
night. But that was a different sort of challenge. Both equally difficult, I'd say. It really stretched me.
Brad, what about you?
So, I mentioned that I got out of hiking for several years.
Yeah.
I took my family to Colorado Springs. We stayed in Manitou Springs in Colorado at the base of Pikes Peak. We were at a park. I wasn't a hiker, wasn't doing any of that stuff. I see these people getting off the bus at the bus stop. They have backpacks. And there's just the bus literally emptied with all these people. And I was like, "What are you guys doing? Where are you coming from?" And they pointed at the incline, the Manitou incline, and I was like, "God, I can't do that. There's no way I could do that." They explained to me what it was, and I told myself, "There's no way I could do that." And then I thought about what I had just said. I said, "Why did you just say that? You can do anything you want." And so I made the decision at that time. I said, "I'm going to do that." And so that was shortly before I started getting back into hiking. COVID came right after that, and the world changed, and there we were. And so I got back into hiking, and I made the decision I was going to do a rim to rim. And so I knew that there was some elevation involved with that, and that I needed to do something hard. I needed to do something that I'd not done before that would hurt. And so the first thing that came to my mind was the incline. I had not done it yet. And I was in the back of my mind. It was something that was, to me, very unknown. I didn't know how difficult or hard it would be. It's a relatively short hike. It's not big. It's, looking back, it's nothing, but doing it for the first time, and getting to the top of it. And again, I got to do it with my son. And so that made it extra special. But when you get up to the top of something like that, and you can look back down at all of those steps that you just did, 2,768 steps up, and it was hard as hell. But when you look back and you're like, wow, I just did something I said I could never do. And then since then, I've gone back and done it 4 times. So, and now it's nothing. But the first time I did it, it was special to me, and it proved to me that the thing that I had set out to do, and this was part of my training, which was a rim to rim. It felt me more. I felt more confident in being able to do the ultimate thing. So, and now I just, when we finish a hike, sometimes I'll say, "Okay, what's next?" So I'm always looking for the harder thing to do. We're looking for something bigger and harder and more challenging to do, because I can't settle for what I've just done being the last hardest thing I'm going to do.
Isn't that crazy that that's the exact same thing I say is, okay, what's next?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is I'm getting older. I'm 57 years old. All right. And a lot of the best of me has already happened from a lot, from just a physical perspective. And I don't have as much time left to do the big things in my life that Sarah does or other people do. And so I have to hurry up and get these things done. My boss asked me yesterday, so why are you doing this? Why are you going to the Grand Canyon? So you know what? I'm doing it because I can right now. And I don't want to someday look back and wish I had and had not done it.
Yep.
I don't want to regret anything. And even if I fail, I tried to do it. And so I can't regret anything. I don't want to live my life wishing I'd done something. I want to live my life knowing I at least tried.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brad. And I know I've got age on my side, maybe, but we don't know how much time any of us has. And I feel the same. That's why I felt so compelled to do Kilimanjaro. I just felt so called to do it. There were a lot of reasons that went into it, but I kind of waited around for a while thinking I might find a friend that would want to do it with me. And that never happened. And finally, I was like, there are these things I need to do. It doesn't matter that it's just me who wants to go and do it because I don't know what could happen. I could break a leg, something much worse. Who knows? So age is important, sure, that's a factor, but I think all of us have to have that same mentality of we're no one's promised tomorrow. No one's knows what's coming next.
Yeah. I know like everybody that I hike with, they're at least 20 years younger than me. So yeah, it's you're absolutely right, Sarah. And also, I feel it like, they're the first ones up on the summit. They leave me. But yeah, it's after we do some crazy stuff, I'm just like, what's next? And I know for me, I'm diabetic, thyroid doesn't work, like lots of health issues. And if I don't have a challenge, like rock climbing or these crazy hikes, I'm just laying in bed because I just don't feel good. And so what I've noticed is having a plan, no matter how far in advance it is, it keeps me kind of heading in the right direction for my health. And if I don't have that, then I'm just, I'll just lay in bed or, that sort of thing. So yeah, I great stuff. So Sarah, have you ever faced any unexpected challenges on a hike, like injuries or gear failures, and how'd you handle them?
There's only been one hike that I had an injury or something like that happened. I was climbing Grizzly D is the name of the peak. It's up above Loveland Pass in Colorado. I think it's a 13er. It's nothing especially notable. It's the same trailhead as Mount Snicktow. If you've heard of that, you can see that from Interstate 70. So it's very accessible to the Denver area. And we had summited Snicktow, that was all fine. And then we continued along the ridge and we're headed up to Grizzly D. And because there was some snow on the trail, we rerouted to try to avoid some of that. And we're in an area with a bunch of big boulders. And I just lost my footing. There wasn't snow or anything. I lost my footing, but I fell and actually tumbled head over heels a couple times down the
Oh my
slope. And it
gosh.
was terrifying. Thankfully, I landed on my backpack and came to a rest there, and my backpack had a jacket or something stuffed in it, so it was a solid or a comfortable landing. But it really shook me up. There wasn't anything worse than just some bruises, thankfully. But that was definitely scary. I'm really fortunate that that's been the worst of it. I mean, I am very careful. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm quite risk averse, so I do try to set myself up to avoid anything that's preventable, of course. Um, as far as like gear or anything, um, when I first started hiking, I kept forgetting to wear my hiking shoes. I mean, that just shows you how I started and how far I've come. I'd get back home to my apartment in Boulder and be like, "Oh, I should have worn those Merrill shoes. I forgot I had those."
Nice.
And I think it was our most recent trip to the Grand Canyon that I don't think any of us even brought a headlamp. We've made some stupid decisions from time to time, or just silly things that we've forgotten. But yeah, nothing too bad.
Brad, what about you?
So my first rim to rim, I don't know how y'all are or other hikers are when you the night before something big. It's hard for me to sleep. I'm so anxious. My mind's a thousand things are going through my mind at once, and so I didn't get any sleep. Maybe a couple hours of sleep. I had to get up super early. I'd catch the shuttle at 4 a.m. So I was up at 3 and went to bed at probably midnight. Went through all my gear more than once, had everything. I knew it was right. I was ready to go. Get on the shuttle, started the rim to rim, got to Phantom Ranch, which is a nice little resting area down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and forgot my food.
Are you kidding me?
I forgot all of my food. Left all of it.
What a rookie move.
Yeah.
Oh,
Everything was left in the refrigerator at the cabin we were staying at. So, fortunately, Phantom Ranch has a canteen, and so you can buy some stuff. I bought, I don't know, some Oreo cookies and some potato chips. I don't eat a lot when I'm hiking anyway. I'll snack, but on certain hikes, I probably should eat more, but I didn't.
You're full of lies. You had like a container of soup on our last hike. Remember, you just whipped that out and started eating a can of soup.
Yeah, but then when we did Baton, I didn't eat a single thing hardly, other than bananas.
That's because you were too busy running past me the whole time.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I guess it just depends. On certain hikes, I'll eat a lot, but on ones that I probably should, sometimes I don't, and it's maybe not by choice that I don't. So I learned a lesson there, and so food is an important part of hiking anyway. Nutrition. You got to stay fed. You've got to keep the fuel in your body, and I was lucky that I was able to at least get some cookies and the lemonade that you get at Phantom Ranch to help sustain me. I did have plenty of water. There's plenty of places to get water, and had plenty of electrolytes. But had it not been for that canteen being there, I don't know what I would have done. I've been real hungry when I got to the top. I know that. So,
oh. I think for me, I've been in 2 pretty dangerous situations. Not me, but the people that I were with, and they're all related to water bladders. If you've heard of any previous episodes, I am against water bladders for tons of reasons that I will not get into because I'll be here all day. But yeah, those one was a gear failure, and both were on the Lone Star Hike. Well, there's been 3. One's been at Guadalupe Peak, and 2 been on the Lone Star Hiking Trail due to leakage, and then just nobody has visibility on how much water you have, and especially if you're a new hiker or a backpacker, I think that you have the mentality that this bag is a fairy bag and it will never empty, and you're just the straw is right here, it's easy, and you're just sucking water like it's nothing. And that's really been the only thing that's no injuries, knock on wood. Well, I guess when you run out of water and it's almost 100 degrees, that's probably heat exhaustion, heat stroke. But yeah, that's probably for me just the gear failures and that kind of whole realm of things. So, Sarah, what is one thing? Let's say if you go back to your first big adventure, what is one thing you wish you would have known before attempting it? And that wraps up another exciting episode of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode today, and stay tuned for our next episode where we will pick back up where we left off and guarantee to uncover many more hiking gems and share many more tips to enhance your experience on the trail. Until then, happy trails and happy hiking.